assent to having a Bible 101
Yes.
class?
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm happy with
Okay.
that.
So, would you all like a text to follow?
Isn't that what the Bible is?
Yeah, read the whole thing this summer, okay?
Read the whole Bible.
There's a plan on this that you could
39
read the
books.
Except
Bible
we won't
in
have to
90
read the
days or
Revelation.
Yes,
30
yes.
days.
Yeah.
I still remember that stuff I learned, 39
Well, what
books,
I
27
intended to
books.
say was,
Say two.
would you like a book that kind of helps guide us through the
Like a
Bible?
syllabus?
No.
A study guide?
Study guide.
A study guide.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah,
That was good.
All right.
so then when we're home and you're not there to guide us, we can go.
Do they have them for various lengths of times, like this would be a study book for like 5 months, 3 months, or a year?
Oh, you mean just
study
reading
book.
the Bible?
No, not the study book, to cover.
No, what I intend to do in this Bible 101
Mhm.
is to address some of the main questions about the Bible that people have, and as well as some of the basic facts about the Bible, but not a Bible study per se like we've been doing through Revelation. So,
The length of time would be
Yeah.
how deep you get into it. right?
yes.
Okay.
So, questions like, what does it mean to say the Bible is inspired by God?
Yeah.
How does the Bible relate, or what do we believe about the Bible vis-a-vis other sacred writings, about other Christian writings? When was the Bible formed? And questions like that that may help us as to help you look at the Bible and interpret it.
It's like the Catholic Church had a lot, or some churches have influenced how well the Bible's put together, and that's influences how you
Yeah. So, anyway, I'll try to do that and get that out to you. And if there are any other kind of questions that you'd like us to look at about the Bible, then
email me.
yeah, let me know. Okay. So that's for the fall. We'll try to do that through Christmas. Beyond Christmas, I probably won't be here, so whoever you get will probably want to do whatever he, she, or they want. So you can work with that. Cool? All right. Okay, well, let's finish up Revelation. And we're down to the final 2 chapters, 21 and 22. 22 is basically concluding remarks. So the meat of what we're going to talk about is chapter 21 through 22:5, which is a whole, a single piece. So,
The whole chapter was it?
so we're going to do like we did the last time. I'm going to ask that we go around and read the text. We'll begin with Cynthia.
Is anybody watching? Robert,
There are
can you
3
tell?
people that are trying to watch.
Then we need to be sure to speak loudly, because when I was watching Bible study last week,
You couldn't hear.
you were the easiest person to hear and everybody else was in the
Okay.
book.
She's a lot enough, yes.
Those years of teaching.
Yes.
Can't
Always
imagine I wasn't included.
Well, Patty taught
Well,
too.
I think it's also, I know, I've talked to people who are hard of hearing, who have hearing challenges, And they said that not the loudness of my voice, but where it falls within the spectrum,
That's the thing.
and that it makes it easier for people to hear my voice than, let's say, my wife, who has a much higher voice, and people lose that part of their hearing. So, we're going to read chapter 21 through 22:5. So, Cynthia, would you begin? Do you have the verses in there?
Yep.
Okay, 1 through 4.
Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, made ready as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne say, "Look, God's dwelling is here with humankind. He will dwell with them, and they will be his peoples. God himself will be with them as their God." 1 through 4?
Through 4.
He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. There will be no mourning, crying, or pain anymore, for the former things have passed away.
You, Kitty, would you read 5 through 8?
And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Be fearful and unbelieving, and the abominable, and the murderers, and the whoremongers, sorcerers, and idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake that burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.
Is that the King James?
Yeah.
And actually, yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering. Is this why some religions focus more on the males? You know, you're going to be my sons. They don't even mention the women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, until the, I'd say 1980s, people were not as conscious, well, some people were conscious of the male language that exists in our translations. Now, I'll chase this rabbit for just 1 second. In the original text, in Greek and in Hebrew, there are distinctions that are made between when people are talking about males versus when they're talking about humanity. For example, in Greek, the word for a man vis-a-vis woman is amer. Whereas when you're talking about humanity, they use the word anthropos, which is or anthropology, obviously. So, and just about every language, even Hebrew, makes the distinction. You know, and English, unfortunately, is a very impoverished language in that
regard to.
yeah, because until recently, you know, the word humankind, for example, was never used. There was no such word. But only within the last 30, 40 years has it become acceptable and part of the English language.
Okay.
But before it was all mankind, you know, or man. So anyway, in the newer translations, beginning with the NRSV, they start to take in account, for example, where the King James would say, my brothers. It would, the newer translations like NRSV would say, my sisters and brothers, or my brothers and sisters. Because that's the only way you can translate the Greek word. Angela thoughts. Okay, all right, we're done chasing that rabbit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Verses 9 through 14, Gordon?
This is from the NIV version.
Mhm.
One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of 7 last plagues came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." And he carried me away in the Spirit to the mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like the very precious jewel, like jasper, like clear crystal. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and with the 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, and 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. The wall of the city had 12 fountains, and on them were names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb.
This is where we get that. I don't know if it's a folk song or spiritual. 12 gates to the city.
Don't know that one.
I haven't heard that one either.
I think it's Pete Seeger, actually. Okay. Mike, 15 through 21.
This is the Message. The angel speaking with me had a gold measuring stick to measure the city, its gates, and its wall. The city was laid out in a perfect square. He measured the city with the measuring stick, 12,000 stadia, its length, width, and height all equal. Using the standard measure, the angel measured the thickness of its wall, 144 cubits. The wall was jasper, the color of glory, and the city was pure gold, translucent as glass. The foundations of the city walls were garnished with every precious gem imaginable. The first foundation jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth carnelian, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate a single pearl.
Beautiful.
That's a big
Continue?
pearl.
Should I continue?
And just to the street.
The main street of the city was pure gold, translucent as glass.
Okay, thank you. My wife would have a wonderful time in this city.
She likes
loves-
jewels.
No, well, she likes gems and
Yeah.
precious metals.
I do too.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, Craig, to the end of the chapter.
I did not see a temple in the city because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it its light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and the honor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life.
Kathy, 1 through 5.
And he pointed out to me a river of pure water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and the Lamb, coursing down the center of the main street. On one side of the river grew trees of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, with a fresh crop each month. The leaves were used for medicine to heal the nations. There shall be nothing in the city that is evil, For the throne of God and of the Lamb will be there, and his servants will worship him. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be written on their foreheads. And there will be no night there, no need for lamps or sun, for the Lord God will be their light, and they shall reign forever and ever.
Okay. Robert, bring us home, 6 and 7.
The angel said to me, "These words are trustworthy and true. The Lord the God, who inspires the prophets, sent his angels to show his servants the things that must soon take place. Look, I am coming soon. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy written on this scroll."
Thank you. The rest of the book is kind of the way you usually end letters, like we do. So the way they end a letter is usually by blessing the reader. And this is what's usually, and that's what's here in verses 8 through the end of the chapter. Okay.
My 7 is red.
That's
Why?
fine.
Yeah, mine is
So
too.
fine.
Yeah,
Why?
Is that
it's
right?
supposed to be
I'm on my
the
way.
words of Jesus.
Oh.
Red letter, yeah, it's
Oh, that's what the
acted.
quotation marks are.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, okay, Revelation took place obviously after Jesus. So, is he's just parroting back what Jesus said?
This is part of his vision, and in the vision, Jesus is part of that vision, obviously, of what's going to occur at the end. And because in the book of Revelation, there is that period called the millennium, which we talked about earlier, I think, in one of the earlier chapters. And that's the period of time in which Jesus reigns over a time of peace over the earth. So Jesus is referred to by many names, including the Lamb, which is a very common term that's used in Revelation to designate who Jesus is. Again, remembering that it's not kosher or
Rome religion.
Not exactly. It's part of the Judeo-Christian tradition. But they had to code everything because Jesus was seen as revolutionary. So they used some of the titles for him, which the principal one in the book of Revelation is the Lamb. Anyway, there is a sense of triumphalism, I think, you hear in these words, a sense that in the end, God will make everything right, and in the end, the forces of evil will be subdued and defeated, and God shall reign. And you hear the echoes of the words from Revelation, the kingdom of our God shall be
Shall come in.
shall be the, what is that from Hallelujah?
Kingdom
of our Lord shall be the kingdom of our
King
Lord,
of kings,
and
Lord
he
of
shall
lords,
reign forever and ever.
and he
and ever.
shall reign
It's very assuring.
Yeah. But you have to read this chapter in the context of everything that has gone on before. We read verses 1 through 4. It's a very familiar passage. We read it oftentimes, I do, at funerals. And it's a very consoling passage. And God shall wipe away every tear, and death shall be no more, crying, mourning, and pain shall be no more, for the first things have passed away. So a kind of assurance for us at death that that death is not the final word. So, but within the context of the whole of the book of the Revelation, this has to be seen in light of what John has talked about in terms of the empire and what it is doing to those who are faithful to Christ, and standing faithful even in light of intimidation, persecution, and oftentimes martyrdom. So it is a word that, if again, John is trying to say, you need to be faithful, you need to be patient, you need to endure to the end. And here he is saying, at the end, if you are faithful, if you are true, then here is a promise for you. So we read this in light of that kind of a setting and context. 21 is basically the culmination of the book. And John is saying, when he talks about the new heaven and the new earth, and the new Jerusalem, that that all the former realities have passed away, in which the empire reigns, in which the values and the intimidation, the violence, and all of these things are part of the present reality. Those things are going to be wiped away. So he's saying here, God is in the midst of the new creation. God's dwelling is not in the heavens any longer, but in the presence of all the people. Now, I want to point out some things to you. If you look at 12 through 14, verses 12 through 14 of 21, where he talks about the gates. And at the gates, 12 angels, and on the gates are inscribed the names of the 12 tribes and the 12 apostles. To me, what he is trying to say is that, that we have a part to play in the bringing in and ushering in of the reign of God. That it's not just God doing everything and we just sit back and let God do his thing or her thing, but that we have a part to play. And so when it says that the names of the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles, it's a kind of a way of saying, the gate, being the entrance, that the apostles and the 12 tribes form an instrument through which people enter into the city. So human agency is acknowledged here. Through Israel, that is the part that Israel has played in the past and as an instrument of God's salvation. And when Christ came, then those who followed Christ are also instrumental as well. So then I want you to notice also that in this new reality, this new heaven, new earth, the new Jerusalem, that there is no temple.
Mm-hmm.
There is no church. Because God reigns over everything, and access to God, You don't have to go to a church, or you don't have to go to a building to be in the presence of God in a special way. Because God is in everything. God is the part of the whole new creation. Okay. Third is that, and if you want to comment or question, then please do. I'm just going to go through my list. The vision of the New Jerusalem is a communal society. It's not, in contrast to the hope of some Christians that, like in the Left Behind books, each of us individually are raptured into the presence of God. So it's a kind of an individualistic kind of religion. It's how you believe in Jesus, and it doesn't matter what anyone else around you believes. One will be taken and one will be left behind. So it's kind of an individualistic way of interpreting this book. And I think that's an injustice to the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation always acknowledges that in the New Jerusalem, it is a communal thing. It's not just individuals relating to God. God's paradise is one in which we will be in relationship to one another as well as to God.
I think that's important because I think sometimes people get so caught up in my relationship is with God and I don't care about you.
Yeah.
Doesn't this kind of fly in the face of those who always argue that we don't have to take care of the earth because it's going to go away, or it's going to go be destroyed? Hurry up, Christ, come and save us from this mess.
Well, there is that theme in Revelation, and we talked about it some last week about how the fact that the more evangelical fundamentalists reading, they would encourage everything going to hell in a handbasket. That the environment, our earth, because that's part of the plan of God.
Hurry up, get it over.
Yeah, and it's the penultimate reality. After which you have to have that reality before you have the reality of Christ coming again. So in other words, hey, we should encourage everything, getting all messed up. And in fact, some of the more fervent ones would say that if you try to hold it back by taking care of the creation or trying to reverse climate change or global warming or the melting of the ice caps, that you're in actuality keeping God from fulfilling the divine plan.
You're working against God.
Yeah, you really are. So we social justice people are not very popular with that ilk. Yeah.
It flies in the face too of the Lord's Prayer, where we'd be working to make heaven on earth, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But aren't these same people the ones who are against things like same-sex marriage, which in their mind is the system falling apart? It seems like they should be in favor of it.
Or at least not care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Good point.
yeah, but they would, I think, look to other sources in the Bible and would say, well, God created us. If you look at the book of Genesis and the creation, God created us man and woman, and a man shall leave his mother and father and shall cleave unto his wife. So they would say, well, this is how God intended for us to live.
So again, it's the selective application of verses.
Right.
Okay.
So
if we wanted to read a commentary on what we kind of believe in the liberal thing, what would be a real good one? That would.
Yeah. the best commentary on Revelation is a book called Unveiling Empires. It's not a commentary as such, where they look at each verse and kind of make comments about each verse, but it's looking at the book of Revelation as a whole and what are the themes that come out in the book of Revelation. I know the authors. One is an Australian, and the other was a chaplain up at, I believe, the University of Washington in Seattle. So, anyway, but that's a book I would
And
recommend.
they put commentaries out and selected for selected books? Or,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There are
All 63 books, in other words. You'd have a
66.
Or 66. Okay.
Yeah.
39.27.
Yeah.
60. Each book would have a
Yeah.
You can buy one cost. Be selected in your
Yes,
commentaries. Okay.
the New Interpreter's Bible, if you want a commentary, is probably the classical one, but it's expensive as heck. So you're willing to spend $50 on
I wonder if Cliff's Notes has one.
yeah, or you can go to Wikipedia.
Probably the cheapest on Amazon.
Yeah, but
New Interpreter's Bible.
mhm. And
Is that one that we have in this list?
I didn't see it this time.
We were looking.
but if you want to borrow my copies of the Interpreter's Bible, I will gladly loan it to you. I have so often loaned books and they never come back.
You have to set up
You have to accept that, yeah.
You have to have a checkout card and everything to keep up on it. Never see them again.
Yep. It's not that people
Do it on purpose.
steal it, they just forget.
Just get a hold of them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm,
But I forget because I have so many books and I
Yeah.
loan so many books out.
Yeah.
Who did I loan that book
That's
to?
Well, you gotta keep notes on it.
Yeah.
I forget who I loan them to, and then I'm surprised if I get one back.
Yeah. I always want to make sure I get the autographed ones back.
Oh, yeah.
Gee, you must know a lot of important people.
Yeah.
I don't have an autograph book.
You go hear them speak, you buy their book and say, please sign it.
Okay, yeah, I went to Audacity
Book
Home. I
signings,
got
That's right.
Senator Barack Obama's book signed, so.
Good for you.
Well, that's these final two chapters. Those are the themes that exist here. I want to just share some just concluding remarks about the whole book. Yeah.
Before you
Sure.
share your concluding remarks, you'll probably answer this. But I have a question that is just very typical of my earthbound brain. But the people that live within the city of Jerusalem, it says that at the end here that there's people that are outside of the walls doing evil things. But what do the people that live in this perfect God world do? I mean, did they just sit around? I mean, I know that sounds silly, but I mean, did they just sit around and be holy all day,
Is it supposed to be heaven? In Jerusalem?
Yes. Yes.
So then you'd be
And we
cleaning
have
your
new
heart.
bodies, we put them in.
Yeah. Okay. So it is heaven. It's
Yes.
not on earth.
Well,
But still, I guess it kind of brings me back to that too, the eternity of things.
again, let me reiterate what I said. The new reality is not a me and Jesus kind of thing where
Right.
you just relate to God, but it's a communal setting
Right.
in which we relate to one another as well as to God in reconciled relationships. No one who's been there has come back to tell us what it's like.
I know.
So,
I wish somebody'd write a book.
you know, Paul says,
Drop it.
eye hath not seen, ear hath not heard the things that God has prepared for those who love Him. So in a sense, you know, it's going to be a big surprise.
Right.
And so none of us can speak with authority about exactly what it's going to be like.
No, I know, it's
Yeah.
one of those questions that's just sort
Yeah.
of like, I mean, I could spend hours and hours just looking at all the gorgeous
Gems.
gems and precious metals and
Yeah.
all of that,
Like
that
that.
Yeah, but I think the reason that John relates, you know, all what it looks like. I can imagine a whole gate being one pearl. Yeah.
Huge pearl.
Yeah. I think what he's doing is to say to us that you think that everything the empire is promising you is beautiful. It compares nothing to the beauty of the new reality. That is to be much more filled with splendor and wonder, and
And it should be a meadow full of flowers.
there you go.
Yeah, I'll take that.
I think everyone has their own
Yeah.
understanding.
animals,
See.
gotta make sure the animals are there.
Yeah, you know, I preached on that first 4 verses once, and I remember I said that, you know, to me, if I were looking at the new heaven and the new earth, to say that the sea is no more is a kind of a disappointing thing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
You know, to me, the sea is a place of tranquility and of beauty and healing. So,
You understand that more because you're from the sea area.
yeah, it is part of where I find home.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
But for John, he was in the middle of an island where the sea is something that separated him from his family and friends.
Barrier.
Right.
And it was a hostile reality.
Well, it was so much of the bad stuff
Yeah,
in Revelation came out of the ocean, or
Right.
went back into the ocean.
there you go.
It was a
Yeah.
lot of evil
For him, it
stuff.
represented a separation.
Mm-hmm.
I think the
Separation of
sea
evil.
to them was very frightening, very, very frightening, because they didn't know how far it went, they
They were
didn't.
desert dwellers.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it moved on its own.
When
Swallowed boats.
when we were on a boat on the Sea of Galilee crossing over, the guide who was there said, you know, it's a beautiful day, the sun was shining, not much wind, so the sea was very placid. And he said, you know, here we are very fortunate that we're crossing at such a time as this, but oftentimes, it just in a matter of minutes, the sky can turn dark and the sea can be a roiling, churning type of danger. And so for them, that it was always a threat.
They're from Arizona, it's the dust storms which pop up, so,
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah. Or the monsoons and the what you call it? No,
Oops.
Elena.
shoot. When the rivers overflowing,
Floods.
flash floods.
Flash
floods,
floods,
yeah.
That's the reality of the desert. Okay. So, all to say, I can't answer your question. 'Cause-
No, well, I knew nobody could, but
Uh-huh.
it's just something I speculate about.
Yeah, if we all,
You're not alone.
If we all sit around playing harps, I think that would be quite boring too.
Yeah, I'd rather be outside with the bad people.
No, Kathy, with the animals.
Well, that's
There you
easy.
go.
Well,
Animals,
yeah.
The animals, right, okay.
Well, they're gonna need somebody to polish and clean all this
It's magic.
stuff. too.
I would find
It's
it very
magic.
difficult
It's
to
all
be
done
good
right.
all the time.
Hey Kathy, it's all done magically, come on.
That
God takes
concept
care of
of
that.
what I should be and how I should behave and that I don't.
Yeah, I knew there wasn't an answer to my question,
Yeah.
but I'm glad that you reminded me that the New Jerusalem is really representing heaven, because I kind of got caught up in, is it
Yeah.
here on earth
Uh-huh.
still?
Mhm.
So that, I mean, I think I knew that.
Where's that mansions? He's building mansions. There's some
That's in the Gospel of John.
John, yeah.
In
Use
my
word.
house are many
Many,
mansions.
Mansion,
no,
yeah.
many rooms. I know Edna was so upset.
Yeah.
So upset because she wanted a house of her own.
Oh.
She didn't want to have a room in somebody else's
She knew,
mansion.
she knew where there were mansions, and here they are preparing a room for her. She said, I want a mansion.
Yeah, and
I want-
that was Steve's.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Yes, and she
I
was
heard that
just
story before.
furious.
Well, that's one
That's
of
it.
Steve's favorite texts.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
scripture too.
Yeah.
I like that one too, I like it.
Well, because I think often, these interpretations, we have to have things that we can relate to
Yes.
and understand.
Yes.
Just like a lot of these contexts were, in the time period when it was written, using all these kind of things that people were reading about would understand it. Would it be today would be, a big, a big, space type house in the sky with, all kind of computer driven comforts of what that we could relate to. You could rewrite it in a context so we'd understand. Just like, when we were the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So people in that time period needed an authority figure, and for them that's authority figures and hierarchies of what they relate to.
Yeah.
And because I find it so interesting today, certain religions still do that, working the King, sing on King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And you using that monarchy, for lack of better words here, motif.
Right.
Well, the concept of calling Jesus the Lamb
Mm-hmm.
kind of confuses me too, because shepherds were dirty and it was a lowly job, and a lamb is something you would sacrifice.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's what he stood for.
So that's what he stood for,
Yeah.
he was a sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, he
He
sacrificed his
sacrificed
life.
lambs.
Mhm.
So, but it goes back to the temple rituals where the firstborn lamb was used as a ritual sacrifice. And so when they talk about the Jesus as the Lamb of God, kind of carries that metaphor forward. And so the Jews understood what it meant to say, he's the Lamb of God.
Another question, all of these animals that get sacrificed, do they get eaten by the people? Or are they just thrown away? Are they
get
wasting
sold,
their
resold.
resources?
Didn't they feed the temple staff?
They would eat it, and usually it would be the priests at the temple who would be allowed to consume it.
They thought they sacrificed them and then they sold to use meat, and that was someone's complaint or something like that.
No, that was, I think what you're thinking about is in 1 Corinthians where they ate foods or the food that was sacrificed to the idols.
Ah,
And it was a prohibition. You
Oh,
don't
okay.
eat the food that's sacrificed to other gods.
Other gods, yeah.
And what Paul was saying is, that's superstition, but
Ours is a practical God. I like that.
he was saying,
Recycle.
Why would you waste the food?
yeah,
Absolutely.
that has always bothered me, especially when they talk about, 6,000 lambs and 12,000 cattle. I think, good heavens, what's everybody gonna eat now?
yeah. Well, it was, it was consumed. It was not just used. The Paul's counsel was, some people were saying that's just superstition, which is what it was. And Paul said, yeah, I agree, But, if it causes the other person who believes that it's wrong to do that to stumble, then you shouldn't do it.
Right,
Because what you're doing is you're enabling that person to fall away from God.
Mhm.
So that was the principle that he was trying to use in that passage. But he wasn't talking about Jewish temple practices at that point. As we've gone through the whole book, I'll try to keep this short, but what one theologian called a war of myths. We think of myth as being something that's false. We say, oh, that's just a myth. But in terms of the way scholars use the term myth, it's talking about the big understandings of a particular religion or philosophy. So when we talk about the myth of creation, we're not saying it's false. We're saying that this is one of the pivotal understandings of the Judeo-Christian religion, that the world was created by God. How it's created is not the issue.
Right.
The issue is that in the big myth, we live in a created world. It just doesn't happen by chance. We can believe in evolution, we can believe in the Big Bang Theory, but that's just the way in which God created the world. It's not saying it's over against. You either believe in the Big Bang or you believe God created the world. So when I say that the book of Revelation is a war of myths, it's saying that here the empire has a set of understandings of reality, fundamental basic principles of reality that the empire operates on. And Christianity is offering a counter myth. It's trying to say that myth is false. Here is a true reality. And I just want to offer maybe a couple of these to you. The empire is based upon the myth that it is divine, and therefore it is to be worshipped as such. You offered unmitigated allegiance to the Roman Empire and to the Caesar. So you worship it. It is the object of your worship. In contrast, of course, John is saying that that is false, and that it is the empire of God, or what we may call the reign of God or the kingdom of God, that is the true, lasting, sacred reality. And so that's one counter. The second myth is what we call the Pax Romana. The central claim of the Caesar Augustus was that the Roman Empire brought an end to all civil conflict, and thereby had brought about peace to the world. So it was called the Pax Romana. He claimed that he had inaugurated this peace, and since he had done so, it was a sign that the gods blessed the Roman Empire. It was a peace that was built upon military conquest and military enforcement. It was an expression of peace, that is the absence of conflict, held in place by the threat of unmitigated force, and the order that was precipitated by everyone forced to fall in line.
Hitler's kind of peace.
That's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And in contrast to that understanding that it was a time of peace, is the vision of Babylon, that it was not a peace, but it was a shedding of blood in reality. Revelation opposes the Pax Romana with the image of the beast and the whores. You remember the beast and the whore of Babylon, and that they were murderers, that they were violent, and this was not peace at all. And similar to what you mentioned about Hitler as a parallel to that. He imposed his will by killing all those who he felt were in opposition, not only the Jews, but all homosexuals, gay people, the gypsies, and even Christians who supported those people.
Right.
So it was not peace at all, but it was the shedding of blood. And Revelation contends that the one true God has revealed this claim to be false. The emperor has no clothes. It reveals the empire to be a mass murderer rather than a keeper of peace. So this is the claim of John in the book of Revelation. The third myth is that of imperial triumphalism. Because the Romans and those who supported the Roman Empire believed that the gods endorsed this imperial rule by showing, look how successful we are, look at all that we have done, they claimed that this is the way it was intended to be by the gods. So that kind of religious endorsement lent legitimacy to the emperor. They argued that success, as they defined it, meant that their rule was meant to be. That this is the way the gods laid it out. And the counter myth, the myth of the book of Revelation, is that of the victory of the Lamb and those who follow the Lamb of God. He redefines peace, and he redefines success. So the Roman Empire's definition of success is accomplishment, technological advancement, order, and what...
Never mind the cost.
Yeah. John is saying that's not success. That's not victory. It's not imperial conquest that is victory. So he rejects the empire and embraces the way of God as being true victory. So even though Christianity and Christians may seem like you're being defeated, in actuality, yours is a true victory, he is saying, even in spite of what it looks like even now. Well, I think that's all I'm going to say right there.
Those three main points.
Yeah. So, any closing comments on the book of Revelation? I have grown to appreciate Revelation, and that it is one of the most radical books that has ever been written from a Christian perspective. So I hope that you've gained that appreciation as well, and we'll look at it through this lens instead of the way that some of our more conservative sisters and brothers would have us to understand Revelation.
Probably a book that has probably the most wide discrepancies of interpretations too.
Oh, yeah, well,
It's endless.
undoubtedly.
You think the book of Ezekiel.
What's that?
Book of Ezekiel.
Oh, yeah. Well, John is well acquainted with Ezekiel and uses Ezekiel as a source of a lot of the ways that he sees his visions.
And I think I would say it again in your earlier about Revelations. It's never a favorite book of mine, and I rarely go to it. But after just going through it, it's something important to go back to every so often to refresh your mind on what to do, and keep it in mind, not to base what I got life out of it, but it's something to remember. And I appreciate the reacquaintance this time, getting reacquainted with his understanding.
I appreciate your explanation.
Yes,
Yes,
very
yes.
much.
This is really
Very
a
much.
strange book.
And even though this was not your favorite to do, and you wouldn't have selected it, it's been really, really beneficial for us to be able to go through it.
Yes.
And
Yes, even if we were whining. I have a few times, but still.
It
No, I'm very
gets
glad we
pretty
did.
tiresome in places, the constant
Yeah.
the violence.
Well, the doom and gloom,
Yeah.
all that stuff all the time. It's kind of getting bogged down in that. It's really hard to get bogged down in.
You hear it spoken of as revelations, but the correct would be the revelation.
Right, it is
Yeah.
revelation, singular, not
Yes.
Yeah.
plural.
The revelation.
And it's supposed to be a blessing that comes with it when you read it.
Yeah.
So I better read
So
that.
this is on screen, is it all one?
Is there a
I am anxious to go back and read it.
Robert asked if this is one vision or many visions, and that's a good question. I would say it's one vision with many parts. That it is a
how terrifying if that was his only.
Especially if you're sitting on the island.
because the principal message that John is trying to get at is, although we are under subjugation, even though we are persecuted, even though our present reality is anything but bright, it is not the final reality.
Right.
And so the whole grand sweep of Revelation is to bring you along, to show you how this all fits into what happens in chapter 21 and 22.
Well, he was exiled. How did he get this to the people? I mean, to other people who weren't in exile.
Carrier pigeons. No, just kidding.
I was almost ready to believe you.
We don't know if he died. He didn't die in exile
But they
necessarily.
used carrier pigeons in those days.
Yes,
Yeah, they did.
But you can imagine this
Not-
scroll was
Yeah.
pretty heavy.
Several pigeons.
I think there were boats that came in periodically.
Oh, okay,
and
so
I
had.
I think he was able to sneak this.
But we don't know that he died in exile.
No, we don't. It doesn't, and it doesn't tell us.
Yeah.
And was that not an island used for other people to be in exile? So you had people coming and going and letters?
I don't know how many people were on the island, to tell you the truth, but it was rather remote, and you're probably correct that there are other people who were just dumped there.
Made me think of Australia, originally England sent all their criminals to
Penal colony,
the
yeah.
penal
Yeah.
colony, that type of,
Yeah.
What, just like England, when Georgia and Atlanta and all those people, England sent people over there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Sisters.
if you've ever been to the Greek islands, but most of them are gorgeous, and there are not cities but towns on all of the islands, and they're beautiful. But I don't think Patmos was. I think Patmos was rather uninhabitable. He must have had some way of sustaining his life. He had to have food and drink, and
I thought maybe Rome had a prison, and they could have had prisons built there. probably
They
no
get more
ruins, so
Yeah.
I don't know whether there are ruins from that time.
I don't know. I've not seen patents.
And then again, if you're hungry, you'll eat pretty much anything.
That's
So
right.
Yeah.
his definition of what he's eating and our definition of food are different.
Yeah, I'm sure the sea provided some food.
Worms and beetles.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, when we talk about it, I keep visualizing the different advertisements with a little person sitting out on this tiny island with one big palm tree. And I know that's not where he was. I realize that, but that picture pops in
Yeah,
to my mind.
That's true.
Robinson Crusoe, there you go.
I would guess there would have been a prison system. Rome, that they
Yeah,
exiled people
I'm
to.
sure.
Because otherwise, how would they have eaten?
Yeah, like Napoleon exiled to an island.
And all these writings, how do they, how they get in the right hands so they can be put in the Bible? His visions had to have it written down, and someone had to get them.
Somebody got it.
And if you were free once you were on the island, but that doesn't mean that someone couldn't come and get you and take you off the island.
Yeah.
You probably were locked up.
Yeah. And, the way they identified each other was with the mark of the fish, right?
Right.
And so John was able to know which one of the sailors that came by were Christian, and probably was able to smuggle the manuscripts out with those.
Are you off to Long Beach?
I am not going to Synod this year. I've had my fill of Synod for a while. Even though it's close by.